Preparing for a Bank of Sydney interview questions and answers interview? You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 20 key questions you're likely to face. For each question you'll see a sample answer followed by the key points to cover. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. Tell me about yourself and your experience. I would present a concise story, my background, the capabilities I built, and why they fit this role. For example, I would connect customer service, financial analysis, accuracy, and teamwork to banking outcomes. I would then explain my interest in Bank of Sydney, particularly its customer-focused Australian banking environment. Finally, I would give one measurable achievement and finish with the value I can add, rather than reciting my entire resume. While answering, focus on a concise career narrative, relevant banking or customer-facing capabilities, measurable achievements, communication skills, and a clear connection between your background and the requirements of the Bank of Sydney role. Question 2. Why do you want to work for Bank of Sydney? I am attracted to Bank of Sydney because it combines a customer-focused banking model with the discipline required in a regulated financial institution. I value environments where relationship quality and sound judgment matter as much as commercial performance. My experience in analysis, service, and stakeholder communication would help me support customers while following strong controls. I also see this role as an opportunity to deepen my understanding of lending, deposits, risk, and Australian banking operations. Make sure to cover specific research about the bank, its customer proposition, Australian market position, culture, role relevance, and how your skills support relationship quality, responsible growth, and long-term customer outcomes. Question 3. What do you know about Bank of Sydney and its customers? I understand Bank of Sydney serves Australian customers across personal and business banking, with products such as deposits, transaction accounts, home lending, and business finance. Its customers expect responsive service, competitive solutions, and confidence that their information and money are protected. I would avoid pretending to know confidential details. Instead, I would demonstrate current research and explain how a smaller or specialist bank can differentiate through relationship depth, responsiveness, and disciplined execution. In your answer, discuss the bank's Australian focus, retail and business relationships, lending and deposit activities, customer diversity, service expectations, and the importance of balancing accessibility with prudent risk management. Question 4. Describe a time you delivered excellent customer service. A customer once contacted my team after receiving conflicting information about an application. I first listened without interrupting, summarized the issue, and checked the records rather than guessing. I then coordinated with the relevant team, explained the next steps in plain language, and followed up when promised. The customer received a clear resolution and thanked us for taking ownership. That experience reinforced that excellent service means accuracy, empathy, transparency, and reliable follow-through. Be sure to mention the customer's underlying need, your listening and communication approach, actions taken, policy awareness, outcome achieved, and what the experience taught you about building trust. Question 5. How would you handle an angry or dissatisfied customer? I would remain calm and let the customer explain the problem fully. I would acknowledge the impact, confirm the facts, and avoid promising an outcome I cannot deliver. After checking the account and relevant policy, I would explain available options, timelines, and any escalation path clearly. If another team owned the resolution, I would take responsibility for coordinating the handoff and record the interaction. The objective is a fair solution and restored confidence. Focus on staying calm, acknowledging frustration, clarifying facts, avoiding defensiveness, explaining realistic options, protecting confidentiality, escalating appropriately, and documenting the interaction for consistent follow-up. Question 6. What does responsible lending mean to you? Responsible lending means recommending credit only after understanding the customer's circumstances, objectives, and capacity to repay. I would verify income, expenses, liabilities, and relevant supporting evidence rather than relying on assumptions. I would also consider vulnerability and explain the product, costs, risks, and obligations clearly. A sale is not successful if it creates foreseeable hardship. Strong responsible lending practice protects customers, supports sustainable relationships, and reduces conduct, credit, and reputational risk. In your answer, cover assessing suitability and affordability, verifying information, understanding vulnerability, avoiding unsuitable outcomes, maintaining evidence, complying with Australian obligations, and balancing customer needs against commercial targets. Question 7. How would you assess a home loan application? I would begin by confirming identity, purpose, requested amount, and the completeness of the application. Then I would assess verified income, living expenses, existing liabilities, credit history, and serviceability under the bank's policy and buffers. I would consider the property, valuation, loan-to-value ratio, and documentation quality. Any inconsistency would require clarification before approval. My recommendation would explain both strengths and risks, with appropriate conditions or escalation rather than simply pursuing approval. Mention identity verification, income stability, living expenses, liabilities, credit history, loan-to-value ratio, security, serviceability, documentation quality, exceptions, and clear escalation when information is incomplete or inconsistent. Question 8. Which financial statement areas matter most when assessing a business borrower? I would focus first on recurring operating cash flow because accounting profit does not automatically repay debt. I would analyze revenue trends, margins, working capital movements, liquidity, leverage, and interest or debt service coverage. I would compare balance sheet changes with the cash flow statement and investigate unusual receivables, inventory, or related party balances. I would also assess customer concentration and management explanations. The conclusion should connect financial performance to repayment capacity under realistic assumptions. Talk about revenue quality, margins, operating cash flow, working capital, leverage, liquidity, debt service capacity, balance sheet trends, concentration risks, management explanations, and reconciliation between statements and bank information. Question 9. How do interest rate changes affect a bank and its customers? Higher rates can improve asset yields, but they may also increase funding costs, reduce borrowing demand, and pressure customers' repayment capacity. Variable rate borrowers face higher repayments, while businesses may experience weaker cash flow. For the bank, that can increase arrears and provisioning even if margins initially benefit. I would use scenario analysis, monitor early warning indicators, and communicate changes clearly. The key is managing profitability without overlooking customer affordability or emerging credit risk. Cover borrower affordability, deposit pricing, net interest margin, credit quality, funding costs, demand, valuation effects, and the need for transparent communication and scenario analysis during changing rate conditions. Question 10. What are the main risks facing a bank? The major categories include credit risk, liquidity and funding risk, market risk, operational risk, cyber risk, conduct risk, and regulatory or compliance risk. They interact. For example, a cyber incident can create financial losses, customer harm, and reputational damage. I would manage them through clear policies, segregation of duties, approval limits, reconciliations, monitoring, testing, and prompt escalation. Effective risk management is not merely a control function. Every employee must identify and address risks in daily decisions. Ensure your answer includes credit, market, liquidity, operational, cyber, conduct, compliance, reputational, and strategic risks, plus the importance of controls, monitoring, governance, and escalation. Question 11. What is the purpose of KYC and AML controls? KYC and AML controls help the bank understand who the customer is, who ultimately owns or controls an entity, and how funds are obtained and used. I would verify identity, assess risk, understand expected activity, and remain alert to unusual transactions or inconsistencies. I would never investigate beyond my authority or alert a customer improperly. Instead, I would document facts and escalate through the approved process. These controls protect the financial system and the bank's reputation. Make sure to explain customer identification, beneficial ownership, source of funds, transaction monitoring, suspicious matter escalation, sanctions awareness, record keeping, and why controls protect both customers and the institution. Question 12. How would you respond if a sales target conflicted with customer suitability? I would not recommend a product that was unsuitable simply to meet a target. I would clarify the customer's objectives, explain alternatives and costs, and document the rationale for my recommendation. If pressure continued, I would raise the concern with my manager or the appropriate compliance channel. Short-term revenue cannot justify customer harm, regulatory breaches, or reputational damage. Sustainable performance comes from solutions customers can understand, afford, and use effectively. Focus on customer-first judgment, responsible conduct, policy adherence, transparent advice, consultation with compliance or management, documentation, and the long-term cost of unsuitable sales. Question 13. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you handled it. I once entered an incorrect date into a report, which was caught during review before it reached the customer. I immediately told my supervisor, corrected the file, checked related calculations, and explained the cause. I then added a validation step and used a brief checklist for recurring reports. The incident was minor, but I learned that accuracy requires a repeatable process, not confidence alone. I now build review points into my workflow before submission. Choose a genuine but manageable example, explain the impact honestly, show immediate containment, communication, root cause analysis, corrective action, and the control or habit you introduced afterward. Question 14. Describe a time you disagreed with a colleague. A colleague and I disagreed about whether an application had enough supporting evidence. Rather than debating opinions, I suggested we list the policy requirements, identify the missing information, and separate facts from assumptions. We agreed to contact the customer for clarification and involve a senior reviewer if needed. That approach resolved the disagreement without damaging the relationship. I learned that respectful challenge works best when it is evidence-based and centered on the shared customer and risk outcome. In your answer, show respectful challenge, evidence-based discussion, active listening, focus on the shared objective, willingness to compromise, and a constructive result without criticizing the other person. Question 15. How do you prioritize competing tasks in a busy banking environment? I prioritize by urgency, customer impact, regulatory or control risk, and dependency on other teams. For example, a time-sensitive compliance issue would take precedence over a routine administrative request. I maintain a task list with deadlines, owners, and status, then communicate early if priorities conflict. I avoid sacrificing accuracy for speed. Instead, I clarify expectations and seek help when necessary. That discipline helps me remain responsive while protecting quality and control standards. Discuss customer and regulatory deadlines, risk and financial impact, dependencies, service level commitments, transparent communication, organized tracking, and willingness to escalate capacity constraints early. Question 16. What would you do if a customer began missing loan repayments? I would contact the customer promptly and approach the conversation with empathy rather than judgment. I would understand the cause, current financial position, vulnerability factors, and likely duration of difficulty. I would explain available hardship or support options accurately, avoid making unauthorized promises, and refer the case through the appropriate process. I would document the discussion and agree on next steps. Early, respectful engagement can support the customer while reducing avoidable losses and conduct risk. Mention early contact, empathy, fact-finding, hardship awareness, accurate records, available assistance, policy-based options, privacy, escalation, and avoiding judgment or unauthorized commitments. Question 17. How would you build a relationship with a small business banking customer? I would start by understanding how the business makes money, its cash cycle, growth plans, key suppliers, customers, and financial pressures. I would review existing facilities and identify solutions that genuinely fit those needs, rather than leading with products. Regular, proactive contact would help surface issues early. I would also explain terms clearly and follow through on commitments. Strong small business relationships are built through commercial understanding, consistency, and trust over time. Cover understanding the business model, cash cycle, goals, stakeholders, sector risks, proactive communication, tailored solutions, financial literacy, credible follow-through, and ongoing monitoring rather than one-off selling. Question 18. How can banks improve digital customer experience without increasing risk? Digital improvement should remove unnecessary friction while preserving security and transparency. I would support strong authentication, fraud monitoring, privacy controls, accessible design, clear disclosures, and reliable audit trails. Before launch, teams should test journeys with real users, including customers who may need additional assistance. Performance and fraud indicators should be monitored after implementation, with human support available when automation fails. Convenience creates value only when customers can use the service confidently and safely. Be sure to discuss secure authentication, privacy, accessibility, user testing, fraud controls, data governance, clear disclosures, human support, monitoring, and balancing convenience with resilience. Question 19. What would you do if you noticed potentially unethical behavior? I would first make sure I understood the facts and preserve relevant records without altering anything. I would not spread allegations or confront the person in a way that could compromise the review. I would report the concern promptly through my manager, compliance, whistleblowing, or another approved channel, depending on the circumstances. If customers were at immediate risk, I would escalate urgently. Integrity means acting objectively, protecting confidentiality, and refusing to ignore warning signs. Explain separating facts from assumptions, protecting confidentiality, preserving evidence, following reporting channels, avoiding retaliation or confrontation, and prioritizing customer protection and regulatory obligations. Question 20. Why should we hire you for this role? You should hire me because I combine dependable execution, customer empathy, and sound commercial judgment. In previous roles, I have handled detailed work accurately, communicated with different stakeholders, and taken ownership when issues arose. I understand that banking performance depends on both customer outcomes and disciplined risk management. I would bring a collaborative attitude, learn Bank of Sydney's systems and policies quickly, and contribute through consistent service, careful analysis, and reliable follow-through. Make sure to summarize 3 relevant strengths, provide evidence of performance, demonstrate customer and risk judgment, show cultural alignment, and end with the practical contribution you would make quickly. If you are still with us, congratulations! You are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.